Atlanta Falcons. All right, this is we're gonna start this thing off with a bang. One of the top players in the entire draft class, who really no one knew where he was going to go because he plays the position known as running back, which has the dreaded 30 number behind it. Like as soon as you hit 30, it's like that's the brick wall. And there are guys that can get past it. Adrian Peterson is one of those guys, definitely. Frank Gore, shout out to him. But that's a position that is very rarely going to, you're going to see guys that are over 30 a lot. And so this is typically a one contract type of position here, following a rookie deal. And normally it's not with that same team, but the Falcons do not care, because even though they had almost 1,000-yard season out of last year's pick in the 5th round out of BYU, Tyler Algier, okay, even though they had that, they decided to go with Bijan Robinson, the talented, quote-unquote, generational running back out of Texas. Now, I thought this was about where he was supposed to go as far as my board is concerned. But I had him going in the late 20s due to the fact he plays the running back position. And I just wasn't sure how the NFL was going to value running backs in this draft. It was a really good, running back class, really depth filled. But he ends up going 8th overall inside the top 10. Cam, what are your thoughts on this pick, my guy? Because I was a little surprised.
Yeah, I mean, Bijan Robinson, we talked about him being one of the better athletes coming out of the draft. So I love it. I had him coming out of number 15, Jake. I had him coming 15. I had him going to the Washington Commanders. They didn't take him. The Falcons took him. And, I feel like the Falcons are kind of going back to what they did a few years ago when they got Devontae Freeman, right? When they got Devontae Freeman, then followed up with your Todd Gurley there, bringing him from the Rams. But a guy like Bijan, clearly the Falcons love a good running back. They love a good running back, and Bijan is that. Like you mentioned, he went a little bit high, Jake. He went a little bit high on the list there. But at the end of the day, my man, he's a generational guy. He's a generational running back. We don't get to see great running backs in the NFL. I mean, we talk about our Todd Gurley's, your Ezekiel Elliott's, who's getting on that back end of his career. So it's gonna be good to see some fresh blood come in, Jake. I'm very familiar with the NFC South, playing with the Buccaneers. So the Falcons are trying to figure out how to raise some hell in that division. They got the Panthers as well, so they're going to have to score some points on the football field, and Bijan Robinson can get that done in the pass game, the run game. He is Mr. Football, so I'm excited to see him there. But like we discussed, he went a little bit high there, Jake. So we'll see how that nets out.
Now, Ken, the reason why I was so surprised by this pick is that they had a 3.6% sack percentage last year. It was the second lowest quarterback pressure rate, according to NFL.com, at 22% in the league last season. And there were pass rushers there, and they decided to go with a running back after their guy that they found in the 5th round, his rookie year, runs for almost 1,000 yards. I was a little surprised by that, and I don't know how to feel. I think obviously this is a fantastic player, right? Talk about the prospect and everything. But if we were grading this pick, it would not be an A+ for me, because I think there were other needs that definitely there. I think there were guys worth taking, and I think you're running a risk taking a running back this high, almost negating your 5th round pick last year, who probably could still start, in my opinion. I thought Algier was awesome. I don't think he gets enough credit, so I got to just give a shout out to my guy Algier out of BYU. But it's not a knock on Bijan. I just think that they had bigger needs. In the 2nd round, though, they go out and they get your guy, Matt Bergeron, and he's really interesting. I had said this during the live draft stream I was doing. Bergeron is somebody that the league is split on. Some see him as a tackle, some see him as a guard. But the tackle they see is a guy that has elite level athleticism, okay? Can develop and turn into something special. The guy that they see at guard is plug and play, ready to play right away, ready right out of the box, if you will, right? Mm-hmm. So here's my thing, and why, after further evaluation, while I had better, players on the board, in my opinion, based on my board, Bergeron was a little bit of a quote unquote reach. I still think this is a really good pick. And actually, after further evaluation, I think it's a great pick because I think right now you have Jake Matthews, right? You have Caleb, McGarry. You're good at both tackle spots. You don't need him to have to just get thrown in the fire. So this is where you got better as a football team. You could say Bijan made them better, and he obviously is better than Algier as far as the overall upside. But this is when you really start getting better because when you look at the offensive line room, now your offensive line, because I'd imagine they're the team that looked at Bergeron as a plug-and-play guard with developmental upside to take over for Jake Matthews at left tackle. And now we're cooking with gas camp, because it's like, okay, well, once Jake Matthews is no longer needed, that's kind of harsh, but you know what I mean? He kind of, falls off a cliff or whatever. You got Matthew Bergeron you could throw right in there. So I really like this pick, Cam. And I think now you just added more depth by adding another guy in the interior. You have him, you have Chris Lindstrom, and you have Drew Dahlman, who you added in the 4th round, 2021. So Falcons offensive line looking good for young Desmond Ridder, who I had as my number 1 quarterback last year.
Yeah, and that's what we talk about, Jake, right? We see this draft. Who are they supporting? What does that look like? And you're going to find out in those first couple of picks. So with Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke coming into the helm at quarterback, I'm sure they're going to battle it out a little bit there, Jake. But they got a weapon in the backfield. I think that just builds the confidence of the quarterback. If they know they got someone back there that can make it happen, that's going to increase their confidence. And then follow it up with Matthew Bergeron coming from Syracuse. My man can play guard and tackle. So that just gives a guy like Taylor Heineke to say, hey, the Falcons believe in me. They brought me here for a reason. They supported me with these 2 picks. Let's ride. Let's roll. So, Jake, I know what you meant. I know what you said there. Some of these picks are a reach. I feel like a lot of these picks in the draft, a couple of them have been a reach. But to see where the Falcons are heading, right, Jake, at the end of the day, we don't really know what they need. They know what they need. So, who knows when it comes to the running back space? There could be injuries. There could be personality issues. So they're trying to find someone who can really take over the helm, and Bijan Robinson might be that guy. So we're not totally sure. We're just calling what we see. And what I'm seeing here is a team that's really doubling down on their quarterbacks by filling out this offense. And then on the defensive side, I know they jumped in the 3rd round and got some defensive guys as well. So I feel like they balanced it out a little bit. I got Atlanta as a B for me, Jake, overall. And I know we're going to dive into some of these other picks here, but I think they know what they need at the end of the day, like I said, and they got some quarterbacks that are coming in here and they need to support them. So I like it.
No, I agree with you. I actually so Bijan, Bergeron, 2 day 1 starters, Zach Harrison probably not starting. You have Bud Dupree, you have Lorenzo Carter, you have Calais. I don't know where his fit is on the team day 1. He's probably more of a situational, rotational guy. And I thought that was a little bit too early for my blood, but Clark Phillips III can just go right in there as the nickel corner for you. I mean, for real, he's really good coming out of Utah. I know there were a lot of people that were convinced he could play on the outside. Personally, for me, I saw him as a nickel guy, so I think this is a really good fit for him. You get to play alongside guys like AJ Terrell, and Jeff Okuda is getting his 2nd opportunity in the league. Following that the trade, the fresh feeling of going to a new team. So I think fitting Clark Phillips in there, really intelligent, just high football IQ, but also just a high motor out of Utah. He's going to help. That was a really good pick in the 4th. And then DeMarco Helms from Alabama, another safety that went in this draft in the 7th. They go out and get Javon Gwynn to add some depth, a guy that can play, he's center guard versatile. So, I think anytime you go out and you get a guy that can play 3 positions on your offensive line, you're cooking with gas in the 7th round. So I gave this draft a B-. I think it could have been a lot better. I think the Bijan Robinson pick just really it shows me what they're doing, and I get what they're doing. And I think it was honestly a little Todd Gurley remorse, because it was like, man, we were hoping the Rams just made a mistake, and Gurley was 100% the same guy, but he wasn't the same guy, Cam. He didn't have the same explosiveness, and it pains me to say that because I love Todd, but he just didn't. And so I think the Falcons were like, what, we need that guy. We need that Saquon Barkley. We need that Ezekiel Elliott when he first came. And to me, my comparison for Bijan was Ezekiel Elliott. So I think you get that. Bergeron starts day 1 at guard, and then he gives you developmental upside at tackle. Zach Harrison hopefully can be a starter down the road. I mean, anytime you draft a guy in the first 3 rounds, you're hoping they would start. But they got to start in the 4th round, which kind of balances that out. in Clark Phillips the third. They didn't have a ton to work with. There's not a lot of picks here, in this draft. So I'm going to stick by a B minus. I think it's definitely worth getting out of the C's, but it's not a top of the B there. I'm going to go with B minus.
Yeah, and you just talked about it with Bijan. I'm going to the business side now, Jake. Let's put the business hat on. We talked football. Let's go to the business side. When you got a guy like Bijan coming into the Falcons Stadium, people are going to buy jerseys and they're going to jump into those seats, right? They just built that stadium a couple years ago, so they got to pay some bills. So why not get a guy like Bijan to come in and support with those bills? You got a guy like Matthew Bergeron to help with that as well, to block for your guy like Bijan. And then you got Jovan Gwynn. I mean, Jake, I think via PFF, right, Pro Football Focus, for folks who don't know, my man Gwynn had 34 reps on the bench press, Jake. I mean, that's a monster. Hard to move. Coming out of South Carolina, so that means he's had some SEC competition. He knows where guys are coming from when it comes to their bull rush, their speed. So you're getting that type of personality in there. And then you got DeMarco Helms from Alabama coming in at safety, right? And so you stacked up on the front side, on the offensive side. So now on the back end of the draft, you get some guys that, like you said, that can step in and play some defense early on. And we talked about this Alabama defense, the defensive backs in general. I mean, I think they had about 3 guys drafted, Jake, in X amount of rounds. And so just the excellence coming from that room, he can bring that mentality to the Falcons secondary. And then going back up, Jake, lastly to Zach Harrison, you mentioned Calais Campbell and Bud Dupree. Those guys, maybe on the back end of their career, especially Calais Campbell, but to learn from them, right, to develop, to even talk stuff, just talk regular stuff, life outside of football. Zach is gonna be able to soak up a lot of knowledge and really push his career forward, right? When a guy like Calais Campbell, who's been playing as long as he has, he's going to be able to say a couple of things that are really going to accelerate Zach Harrison in his gameplay. I know when it comes to Ohio State, he had to work on his pass rush skills and a couple of different things, his toolkit. Well, Bud Dupree, he's going to be able to add to that. Calais Campbell, he's going to be able to add to that. And so I like the pick there, Jake. Like I said, I gave Atlanta a B. It would have been a B plus, but like you mentioned, with Bijan Robinson filling that void, they didn't really have a void there. So like I said, I'm going to B rather than a B plus. But they got to put butts in seats, Jake. They got it's coming from a business lens as well. So
that'll do it. I mean, no offense to your guy Bergeron, but not only a select few of guys are going to an NFL game with the entire sole purpose is to watch the offensive lineman. But
being from Canada, right? Like I'm sure some Canadians might come to the game, but they're going to want to come see Bijan for sure.
Absolutely. I think just one last thing before we wrap up, this draft class, move on to Carolina, is that you have Drake London, you have Matt Hall and Scott Miller. Frank Darby's a 6th round pick in 2021. Kaderil Hodge is somebody I always have really liked. He's bounced around teams, but they signed him. I would have liked to see them actually go out and get one of these really talented receivers in this class. Now, this was a depth-filled receiver class, not a top-heavy, in my opinion. I mean, I think it was somewhat top-heavy at the top, but I mean, there wasn't anybody that was true like a number 1 wide receiver right out of the box, so to speak. But I would have liked to see, maybe instead of going, Zach Harrison, you go edge a little bit earlier, and then you go, 3rd round, you go out and you get one of those stud wide receivers that went off the board. I think that they need some wide receiver help. They probably have a plan, or they're really high on these guys, but I think they definitely could have gotten their quarterback another weapon. I don't know. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair, Jake. That's fair. I mean, you want to get guys, that can catch that football. And I know last year they got Kyle Pitts, right? And so do they think he's that X factor there? Who knows? But hey, I'm excited to see Bijan, Jake. I'm excited to see Bijan. I'm sure the whole Falcons fan base is as well.
He's going to be wearing number 7.
Mike Vick. That's a statement.
Yeah, no, I thought so too. There are people complaining about it. I just think it's way, not getting too much into the whole Michael Vick piece. I'm a big fan of his overall game, and he was just explosive, just electric. But he's remembered more as a guy that could have been, you know, an all-timer on the Falcons, made some mistakes along the way, paid his dues, like, right, like, you know, he put in the work and got back on his feet. And I look at him as an Eagle because, I mean, that's where he finished his career. That's where everyone remembers. That's where things were good, right? So I think, you know, Bijan has every right to choose 7. It wasn't retired, and I don't think he has to ask permission for a guy that moved on to Philly. You know what I'm saying? Like, I thought that was a little, you know, ridiculous.